So Hassan Reddick was at the podium for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was asked about showing up with the Eagles, 3-year contract, $45 million. But they revisited his one season with the Carolina Panthers and whether or not he actually wanted to stay with the Panthers. It's been a point of contention as to whether or not he wanted to stay with Carolina. Was it a money issue? Here's his response.
It wasn't that I wanted to test free agency. Carolina just had other plans and other directions that they wanted to go to.
So there you go. They had other plans. The reaction to this, Giglio, was, Matt Rhule did it again. How did you let this guy go? He was good in his one season with the Carolina Panthers. And here come the Eagles. They pick him up, a 3-year deal, $45 million. He has a career-high 16 sacks and a league-leading 5 forced fumbles. How did the Panthers fumble that one, Joe? It's got to be Matt Rhule. And I can't believe I'm doing this. But here I am defending Matt Rhule.
At the end of the day.
Oh, no. Where does Hassan Reddick play?
Linebacker?
Where? Temple guy. Okay. So there's the connection. Do you think Matt Rhule wants to give up a Temple connection?
Never.
Hell no. To me, this is where we get into the not everything, even if Matt Rhule had say on personnel decisions, not everything comes back to the head coach. At some point, Scott Fitterer, the general manager, has to be put under the limelight for some of the decisions that were made regarding contracts. And the owner also has to be put in a position to under scrutiny of, hey man, where was the allotment of money going? What was the one thing the Carolina Panthers, when he says not in the plans, what do you think their ultimate plans were in the offseason when it came to hoarding as much money as they possibly could?
The quarterback position.
Yeah. So that's probably what it was. But it does go to show you that your constant pursuit of the quarterback, which we understand is the most important position on a roster. We're seeing this with the Eagles and the Chiefs and Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and Josh Allen, etc. But the teams that ultimately do get to the Super Bowl have other players. In fact, I don't think this is a hot take, Joe, but the closer we get to the Super Bowl, is it pretty clear that the defense is going to be the thing that decides the Super Bowl, not necessarily Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes? You credited Kansas City's defense for being the difference in their win against Cincinnati.
That's how they got here.
That's how they got here. The Eagles are wrecking people, and Hassan Reddick is part of that. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes handles the blitz in this case, when statistically he's had one of his poorer performances against the blitz this season. It's older, maybe not as many weapons. There's any number of reasons that can go into that. But this game's going to be decided on who gets to the quarterback. The Carolina Panthers had that and could have been stronger with that. They could have been best positioned to insert a rookie quarterback or a free agency quarterback and make to the playoffs next year with a new coach. Instead, they still have some holes to fill, which we'll see how that plays out in the draft and free agency this year.
Yeah, I mean, not everything was Matt Rhule's fault.
A lot of it was.
Just, 90% of it.
But here I am saying, whoa. Maybe not. Maybe not in this case with Hassan Reddick.
You also need to, there's such a thing as position scarcity. You're not going to invest. It's difficult to invest past one player at linebacker and receiver in general.
Speaking of the Carolina Panthers,
they tend to grow on trees, to be perfectly honest with you.
There you go. Steve Wilks has a new job. He obviously was not going to be the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. That goes to Frank Reich. Steve Wilks not sticking with the organization. He is now the new defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. D'Amico Ryans left that job to go be the new coach of the Houston Texans, where he signed a 6-year deal with the Texans in this round of coaching hires. So both Brian Flores and Steve Wilks have new jobs, and they're both defensive coordinators now. There's two parts to this story. One of them is related to the lawsuit that Brian Flores brought to the NFL. And then there's also, is this the next step for somebody like Steve Wilks to get another chance at a head coaching gig? Because the San Francisco 49ers, speaking of defenses, the big reason why they're positioned as a Super Bowl favorite is they got dudes on defense, man. And this is a continuation of what they had with D'Amico Ryans. And we know that Steve Wilks is a pretty well-respected, pretty good defensive coordinator. If they get their quarterback position right in this offseason, the 49ers will probably be right back in the Super Bowl discussion, if not at least contend one way or the other. And who's to say that Steve Wilks doesn't get set up for another potential job, head coaching job, next offseason? That's the way I would look at it.
You'd love to see him rewarded, but the reality is if he didn't get the job from the Panthers, he's probably not going to get a different route. Probably not.
Yeah, it's me being somewhat optimistic with this thing. We'll see. That kind of depends on, we do live in a world where apparently Eric Bieniemy doesn't interview well, despite the fact that he's been part of an otherworldly offense where the previous offensive coordinator had no problems getting a job. So just something to keep an eye on with Steve Wilks going forward in the NFL.